Good morning. Welcome to Coffee Talk. I'm Mark Bradberry. Why don't you grab a cup and join me this morning? Hey, to begin with, as I say this, you need to understand something. I was really tired. I'd had a long day working, and then I just sort of finished it up with an impromptu dinner out. A little bit later than my normal. It's comprised of a house Pinot Noir and a plate of chili nachos. I got home. I packed a few things for a business trip that I was supposed to go on the next morning, and I set an early alarm on my iPhone to get me up. And then I went ahead, crashed into bed at a decent hour, along with a little bit of indigestion, you might say. But all too soon, my iPhone played its lively little tune, and I awoke with a start. It's like, wow, it just seemed like must have been sleeping very deeply, because it just didn't seem like any time at all had passed. So, just kind of blew it off, and I said, well, I might as well just go ahead and get up. I'll go ahead and beat the traffic and get to the airport. So I got up and I bathed and I shaved and did all that kind of stuff, got dressed, set my bag outside the door, and then I looked at the clock. It said 11:11 p.m. I'd only been asleep about a half an hour. Gosh, it wasn't an alarm I had heard at all. It was my son calling me from Chicago just to say hi, and I had missed the call. Ring-a-ling, ring-a-ling, ring-a-ling. Well, the ding-a-ling, just had to, I laughed at myself and I went back to bed. Have you ever made a mistake? Have you ever done something like that? Sure, we all do those sorts of things. We all make mistakes. I mistook that incoming call for my early morning alarm, and I didn't bother to check the time. My greatest mistake was actually probably having those chili nachos, but we won't talk about that either. Look, from time to time, we all do make mistakes. You do, I do, we all do, and we all make unwise choices that we have to live with the consequences of. Sometimes it's just an innocent and an unpredictable goof up. Sometimes it's not. But here's the question for you is, do you hold on to your errors and fret about them, or do you face them honestly and move on? It's in those boundaries that are closest to us, that things are, the most problematic. Those are the areas in which we stumble and we take it most personally. We make the mistakes and we regret those mistakes. It's here too that, we're the most conflicted. Will I be alone? Will I be cared for? Will I be needed? Will I be in want? Making choices is a very personal matter, and it can be confusing, particularly when the stakes are in the realm of the closest connections that we have. That's where the emotions have the greatest impact. The stakes are high, but ironically, it's where our resolve is the weakest. Under emotional stress, we may compromise our ideals and choose wrongly or selfishly. A healthy conscience leads us to feel self-recrimination and regret and guilt if necessary. But oddly, the very personal nature of those feelings can make us hold on to that regret or guilt way too long, hindering us from moving forward and further compounding the original wrong. Making a mistake, you must understand it, or committing a transgression, it doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't define you as a hypocrite. It doesn't mean any of those kind of things. It simply means that you are human. You're simply human, and you're imperfect, just like the rest of us. The important question is not what did you do, but what will you do in response? Do you acknowledge your actions? Do you deal with them? Do you accept responsibilities for your wrongs? Do you learn from your mistakes? Do you seek to grow? Do you laugh at your goofs and your errors and move forward? Can you own up to your sin and grow? God sustains us in our weakness, you see. He encourages us in the comedy of life and probably laughs right there along with us. He gives us the gift of joyfulness and playfulness that can enable you to bounce back from life's pratfalls. And when things are more serious, when our error is sin, well, God works in a similar way. If we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from unrighteousness. That's the power to move on. So, if God can do that for you, why can't you do it for you too? I could knock myself, I could beat myself up over my mistakes, I could hang on to the past, or I can laugh at myself, I can gain a little personal insight and move on forward. And if I've sinned, well, I can humble myself all the more, seek forgiveness, and make amends. Well, as for my little tale, I did finally awake at the appointed hour. I have to say I was probably aided by that lingering indigestion. But I got up and I got dressed and I left for my business trip. Now that's far past in my life. It's a long time back. But with the benefit that I learned something, a few things, and I have a good story to tell on top of it. So have a great day. Learn from your mistakes and forgive yourself. But one word of advice, if I may, avoid the chili nachos. And enjoy your coffee.